What is the difference in meaning between these two phrasal verbs? Would you be able to use them in speaking? How many different meanings of these phrasal verbs do you know? Welcome to Verb It Up, a video series dedicated exclusively to teaching you phrasal verbs. I'm Magic at your English Upgrade, and today we'll be testing how much you know about phrasal verbs at each level. We'll start the test at A1 and go all the way to Proficiency C2, learning and revising phrasal verbs as we keep going. At the end of the video, I'll also teach you a very cool proficiency phrasal verb, which will make you sound more natural and fluent in everyday situations. So make sure you keep watching. In this test, I have 30 multiple choice questions for you. 5 questions per level. For each question, you'll have to choose the right preposition to make the sentence work. I'll give you time to read each question first, and then you'll have 6 seconds to choose the right preposition from the options I give you. A test like this is a great opportunity to revise and learn new phrasal verbs. So at the end of each level, we'll be taking one of the phrasal verbs from the questions, explaining how it's used in more detail and giving you explanations about its other uses. And now we're ready to start our test. Welcome to Phrasal Verbs at A1. Have a look at the first question. What is the correct preposition here? I want to find out more information about this. Question 2. What's the correct answer? She usually wakes up at 7. Question 3. What's the correct answer? My son wants to be an astronaut when he grows up. Question 4. Which is the correct preposition here? Close your eyes and think of a beautiful beach. And here is our last question at A1. What's the correct preposition? Come on, you can do it! Well done! How well did you do? Was this question 4 with think a little bit difficult for you? If you've got at least 3 prepositions right, you are definitely ready for the next level. But before we do that, let's have a look at one of the most useful verbs at A1. Come on. Now, come on is a great phrasal verb which is useful at all levels. It's normally used as an exclamation, and in this case, it's used to give somebody encouragement and say that yes, they are able to do something. Come on, you can do it. But depending on the intonation you use with this verb, the meaning you are communicating is going to change. For example, we can use come on in negative situations. Imagine, for instance, that you are waiting for somebody and you are getting impatient. You can then say, come on, we're going to be late. In this case, you're definitely not giving encouragement to anybody. You're simply expressing your impatience through the intonation. Another negative situation in which we can use come on is to show somebody that we don't believe them. So for instance, if you're suspecting that somebody is lying, you can say, "Come on, you didn't do it yourself." And then you can simply use "come on" to tell somebody that it's time to go. We've got to go now, come on. And now we're ready to go up to A2. Here are 5 questions on phrasal verbs at the pre-intermediate level. Question 6. What's the right answer? We need to deal with this problem as soon as possible. Question 7. What's the right answer? My job satisfaction depends on a lot of things. 8. What's the right answer here? You should really give up smoking. It's not good for you. 9. What do you think? Jenny is looking after my cat tonight. And finally, question number 10. What's the correct preposition? Peter loves sports and he works out every day. Well done! Were you able to get at least 3 answers correct? Please tell me you didn't say depend of. It's one of the most common mistakes learners make at this level. Anyway, before we move to the intermediate level, we're going to have a look at work out. In this context, it means to do physical exercise. Peter works out every day. I'm sure you've heard of the noun workout when people talk about their training at the gym. My workout today was very intense. So in this case, we're using workout not as a verb, but as a noun, as a phrasal noun, in fact. But physical exercise is not the only context in which we use work out at the pre-intermediate level. We actually have 2 more meanings that we learn at A2. The first one is when we're talking about solving problems. For instance, we can say, we need to work out a solution to this problem as quickly as possible. One more meaning of work out at the pre-intermediate level is in the context of making calculations. For example, I can never work out how much tax I have to pay every year. In other words, I can never calculate how much tax I have to pay. And that's it for work out at A2. Let's move on to intermediate level. Here are our 5 questions about phrasal verbs at B1. Look at question 11. What's the right answer? Did you hear Maddie and Jake broke up last night? 12. What do you think? The flat we visited turned out to be very old. 13. What do you think here? We still need to carry out 2 more tests. 14. What's the right answer? Don't make up any excuses. Just tell me what happened. 15. What do you think? I'm not prepared to take on any extra responsibility at work. Well done. So they're getting a little bit trickier, aren't they? How well did you do? Did you get at least 3 this time? Well, if you did, congratulations. Before we go to B2, let's take a moment to speak about make up. Make up is a wonderful phrasal verb. It can be used in daily conversation and in business English. In other words, it's a universal phrasal verb. In this case, it's used in the meaning of creating or inventing a story. And make up is very often followed by words such as a story, an excuse, or a lie. These are so-called collocations, words which naturally go with that word. Unfortunately, we have no rules for collocations in English, we just need to learn them. But if you use them correctly, you sound very, very natural. Make up has more meanings at higher levels, but this is perhaps a topic for another video. Now it's almost time to go to B2. Almost, because first, I wanted to remind you that you can actually download a summary of all the phrasal verbs that we are talking about in this video. And second, if this video is teaching you anything useful in English or bringing you any value, please consider subscribing to the channel so that you don't miss any of our future content. And if you're not ready for that type of commitment yet, please like the video as it helps me to know that I'm doing a reasonably good job teaching you English. And now, let's have a look at 5 phrasal verbs at B2 level. Now this is an exciting level because it coincides with Cambridge First. So if you want to take the exam, you can use this test to see how your knowledge of phrasal verbs at this level is. Oh, and from now on, just to increase the challenge a little, we're going to have 4 options for each question. Ready? Then have a look at question 16. What is the right answer? They called off the meeting, so I have a free afternoon. 17. What do you think? How much money are you able to put aside each month? 18. What do you think? I've fallen out with Max and I'm not speaking to him. 19. What's the correct answer? Don't drink that milk. I think it's gone off. 20. What do you think? I'm feeling very sick. I think I'm gonna throw up. Well done. So how did you do at B2? Do you know enough phrasal verbs to do the Cambridge First? Well, it's an exciting level because at B2 we're starting to learn more advanced vocabulary and more advanced grammar. Now, before we go on to C1, let's have a look at one of the phrasal verbs at this level. Go off. Go off is a very useful phrasal verb, and we learn it in 3 different meanings at B2. First of all, just as in the example, we learn that go off is used when food or drink go bad. Don't drink this, I think it's gone off. If something has gone off, it's definitely not a good idea to eat it. Another meaning of go off is when we talk about mobile phones or alarm clocks. If a mobile phone or an alarm clock goes off, it means it starts to ring. If your alarm doesn't go off in the morning, it means you might be late for work or for school. And go off is a very useful and natural verb to use in this context. The third meaning of go off we learn at B2 is in the context of explosions. This is perhaps not the most usual topic for our everyday conversation, but go off is a very useful and natural verb in this context. Often when you're listening to news, you can hear a sentence where they use go off to talk about something that has exploded. The bomb went off in the early morning hours. Now, go off has more meanings than this, but we're not going to cover them now. For us, it's time to move on to the advanced now, where things get really exciting. Have a look at question 21. What do you think is the right answer? When the pandemic broke out, many people didn't wear face masks. 22. What's the right answer? Designing an airplane calls for a lot of knowledge. 23. What do you think? She came across as a great leader giving that speech. 24. What's the correct answer? It's not dark here, so put out your flashlight. And finally, question number 25, the last one at C1. Have a look. What's the right answer? What do the letters in NASA stand for? Well done! How well did you do? Do you keep going and getting at least 3 right answers per level? If so, many congratulations, your English vocabulary is fantastic. Now, before we move on to proficiency, let's have a look at one of the phrasal verbs at C1. And we're going to talk about come across. Now, at C1, there are 2 meanings of come across that we should know. The first one is to do with impressions. When we are talking about an impression that somebody or something gives us, come across is a very natural verb to use. For example, if your boss gives a very friendly impression, you can say that they come across as a very friendly person. If an email you've received seems rude to you, you can say that it comes across as rude. In both of these examples, you can see that come across is followed by as. And this is a very common preposition to use after come across when we are talking about impressions. The other meaning of come across is actually from the B2 level, where we use come across to say that we have found something by accident. For instance, I can say, I came across a great YouTube video on pronunciation yesterday. Or I can say, Jerry came across some old photographs when clearing out his cupboard. Again, he wasn't looking for these photographs, he just found them by accident. He came across the photographs. And now we come to the final section of this video, the C2. If you answer correctly, it means your vocabulary is absolutely amazing. Perhaps you shouldn't even be watching this video. So let's have a look at 5 questions at proficiency. Here is question 26. What do you think? Nobody thought she could do it, but she actually brought it off. 27. What's the correct answer here? Would you be able to get by on your own in the jungle? 28. Have a think. It was his third cardiac arrest, and his heart gave out. 29. What's your answer? Apparently, the robbers made off with all the money. And finally, number 30. What do you think? How do you set about preparing for an exam? Well done! Now, many students would have found this set nearly impossible to do. So again, many congratulations if most of your answers were correct. And now, as promised, we're going to look at one proficiency phrasal verb that's going to be useful for us regardless of the level that we have, and is going to make our conversation more fluent and more natural. Get by. Now, if you look at the meaning here, it's simply to survive. Now, this doesn't sound incredibly useful or exciting, but you can use get by in a more metaphorical context. For example, if you have just enough skill or just enough knowledge to do more or less well in a given subject or context, you can use get by to do that. For example, I can say, my German is not great, but I can get by. This doesn't mean that I have great knowledge of German. It simply means that I know enough to survive in this context. So this is perhaps a little bit more useful. Now there's a third meaning of get by that I wanted to teach you, and that's the one that's going to make you sound more natural in everyday conversation. Imagine somebody is asking you, "How are you?" to start a conversation. Well, in this context, you can use get by to tell them that even though life is not incredible, you are doing okay. So how are you? Yeah, getting by. That's very natural in English. So next time somebody asks you, "How are you?" just tell them, "Yeah, I'm getting by, thanks. And you?" And that's it for this video. How did you do in the test? Which level of phrasal verbs should you be working on? If it was a little hard, make sure you click that subscribe button so that you don't miss out on any of our future content. There are over 2,000 meanings of phrasal verbs we can be learning, so there's plenty of opportunities for me to make videos on them. Just let me know in the comments below if you want me to make any more videos on phrasal verbs. And that's it for this video. Do remember to click the link in the description below to download the summary of all the phrasal verbs from the video. And if you have 5 more minutes, I'll see you in the next one. Take care, keep learning, and enjoy the process. Thank you very much for watching.